So hello everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the webinar titled Self-Service Account Management for Oracle Clinical, Remote Data Capture, and Thesaurus Management System, presented by Michelle Engler from BioPharm Systems. I'm Eugene Stefanoff, the Marketing Manager at BioPharm, and I will be going over some housekeeping items before I turn it over to Michelle. During the presentation, all participants will be in listen-only mode. However, you may submit questions to the speaker at any time today by typing them in the chat feature located on the left side of your screen. Please note that other webinar participants will not see your questions or comments. Nonetheless, your questions will be addressed as time allows towards the end of the presentation. If you still have unanswered questions after the webinar or would like to request additional information from BioPharm, feel free to visit the company's website for contact information. As a reminder, today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on BioPharm's website within 24 hours. We will also be emailing you a link to the recording. This concludes our housekeeping items. I would now like to turn the call over to Michelle Engler.
Thank you, Eugene. Eugene, just to be sure, can you verify that you can see the presentation?
Yep, looks good.
Great, thanks. Welcome. Welcome to this webinar on the Accel-Account Manager tool. I'm going to do a short presentation and then do a live demo of the tool. When you have questions, as Eugene said, feel free to chat them to the chairperson, and then he will be asking the questions at the end. Who am I? My name is Michelle Engler. I'm the Principal Consultant and Developer here at BioPharm Systems. I joined BioPharm in 1999 and have worked on development for a multitude of products over the past 13 years, from the Oracle Clinical Validation Suites in my early years at BioPharm to Simple Forms, Accel-Account Manager, and Excel Copy. I have experience with the full life cycle of clinical systems, including implementation, validation, and development. Here's the overview. I'm going to talk about what is meant when we say self-service account management, discuss the clinical account administrator's role with AM, Accel-Account Manager. I'll go through RDC study business case and demonstration, and then I'll talk about what's next for the AM tool in 2013. So to start, self-service account management. This tends to happen quite a bit when we're dealing with users of any system. Historically, there hasn't been a way to retrieve a password or reset a password by a user in the case that the password is forgotten or there's some problem with the credentials. Well, AM solves that. AM is the short name for the Accel-Account Manager. So to start, a user forgot their username. Well, AM will allow the user to retrieve their username. They forgot their password. AM will allow you to reset the password without knowing the old password. What also happens is when an account is set up in AM, there are security questions set up, and those security questions are utilized for the operations of resetting a password or retrieving a username. The user has control to change the security questions and answers on their own without having to involve an administrator. Also, maybe a user has a question, I asked for an update to be made to my account. Was it done? Well, AM does auto notifications of account updates. When an account is created, it automatically sends credentials to the new user. Important things like, let's say, the security of an account was compromised. Someone was trying to reset a password for an account and it wasn't the appropriate user. Well, AM will notify the email address of that account and also the administrator that happened and lock the account. So important items that happen in the realm of account management are notified, are sent by email to notify the user and the administrator as appropriate. Okay, the clinical account administrator, what does this look like? This is a person who has clinical experience. They are aware of security settings for studies, and they're more on the technical side. But they don't have to be able to do anything related to database administration, or they're not running scripts in SQL. They're using an interface to create accounts. So as the AM administrator, that person can reset passwords for several accounts at a time. They can lock one or more accounts at a time. They can also create accounts for OC, RDC, and TMS. They have the power to do that through the tool. They can adjust roles, database roles, and study lists for a clinical account. They can generate multiple accounts at a single time through an Excel spreadsheet. They can also assign RDC study site privileges to multiple accounts at once. And then finally, there's logs that are kept in the system in terms of what activities are done through AM and what emails are sent, and the administrator has the ability to review those. Okay, so let's get into what a business case could look like. Let's say that we have a new RDC study, and it's scheduled to begin, and there's several account request forms that have been collected. Let's say there's 5 sites with 3 users each that need to be created all at once. They need to be done as soon as possible. So the mission is to create these accounts efficiently and assign these RDC study site privileges to get the study and the sites up and running. So what I would do in this case is I would go to my Accel-Account Manager, the admin tool. I would log in. Okay, so here's the main menu of the administration tool. And there's a lot of features in here, but right now what we want to do is create many accounts at one time, and we want to do it efficiently. So there's this feature here called the Mass Load User Accounts. Make it a little bigger here. So when I select that, I get to a place where I can select a file to load. Let me show you what the file looks like here. Okay, so here's an Excel spreadsheet, and it's in a format that AM is expecting, where the first and last name and the username is listed out, the email address. You can list out more than one database at a time. Perhaps you had users that would start on, would be created on maybe prod and test, for example. You can do that here with a pipe. Also, you can specify what the application access is and study access, the role, and the password policy. So you go ahead and you create this spreadsheet from your clinical account request forms. And then in AM, you can select this spreadsheet for loading. And all you do is click Load Accounts. Now it's going to go through that spreadsheet and one by one create the accounts. And when it's creating accounts, we're talking about all pieces of the account. We're talking about the database server account, if it's necessary, and SaaS server account, all of the directories that need to be configured. Maybe you have a report server and you need to have addresses. You need to have directories set up. So all that gets done automatically by AM. And then at the end of it, it creates these 2 files. There's a resultant Excel file and then a log file. So let's look and see what happened. So if I look at the log file, it looks like everything went really well, but then I found out that there was an error with one of the accounts. So you can see right here I've got all these mail delivery subsystem failed coming up because I have fake email addresses associated with these accounts. So if that happens and the administrator gets those notifications, if they have real email addresses, which they should, then what happens is they get a credentials email that they can use to verify their account and set everything up. But right now what I want to show you is that there was an error when we're trying to create this account. And everything else looked like it created okay. But let's deal with this error. It can happen when you're dealing with multiple accounts that some of them are going to error out. So what I just did here is I opened the resultant Excel file. And in here you can see the status of each user. And I can also see the error, and I can see why there was an error. And I can look over here and say, oh, okay, there was no ops proceeding, and because I have OC here, I have to have it. If it was only RDC, then I wouldn't have to have it. So I'm going to make the change by just adding the ops. And I'm going to change the status to reload and save the file. And now we're going to do it again. I select the file, I click Load Accounts, and now it's going to go and process that file. And anything that doesn't have the status of reload, it's going to skip or ignore. So we can see if that happened here. So here we go. It's telling us it skipped all of these users that we didn't set to reload, and then it's telling us that it did indeed create our ops C. Jeffers user. And then again, there's a resultant Excel file. So you can see as you're going through creating these accounts, it can be an iterative process. When you do get errors, you want to correct them, and you go through it until you have everything created. Let's go and look at these accounts that we created now. So I'm going to query the accounts, and I can see, oh, there they all are. Okay, everything was created. Now all of these users will receive an email, and I'll show you what the email looks like. I put one in here. Hold on. Here it is. Okay, so there's a couple things that happen. A new account created email gets generated. And this is what all your users would receive. The content and the layout of this email is completely configurable. But for now, what I have to do if I got this email is just verify my account. So I would click on this link, and it would go to the verification screen. Here I would enter my password and confirm, select my security questions. And then click Verify My Account. That process is going to update the password for all systems, all environments associated with my account, and then it will set the status of my account to not be in soft lock, to be cleared of any locks. And at that point, I can actually access the account. So that's what all of your users will receive when you mass load accounts or create accounts. That's the process for verifying. In addition, when doing a mass load, what happens is an email is generated to the administrator to indicate what happened in the mass load. So that's helpful in the case that you have a really big file and it's going to take some time. You can kind of leave it to process and come back and then look at what the status is of everything. So that gets sent out as well. Okay, so back to the tool. We have all these accounts. And now what I want to do is assign RDC study site privileges to the accounts. So what I would do is go into RDC privilege assignment, select the environment of interest, the study I would like to give them access to. And then we have this concept of a security scheme. Now this is completely configurable, but the idea is to help in managing the types of privileges that are assigned to the types of roles. So if you have a CRA, in general, these are the roles that we would like to assign. Now these can be changed and customized as you're applying security access, but this helps to standardize the process of assigning RDC privileges. So for this case, I'm going to select the Clinical Research Associate, and I'm going to click Select Users. And when I look for my users, it's going to pull up all the ones that have this CRA role. Now, whatever ones I want to assign privileges to, I select. And when I do select the checkbox, it comes up with this drop-down of the site to change. And so now what I'm doing is I'm going to set up the site association for each of the users. Now, if a user was to be granted access to more than one site, I could add them multiple times here. But in this case, I'm just going to assign them to one site. And then I get back to my main screen where it's listing out the users that I will be granting security to. And I have my security scheme selected. And all I have to do now is click Grant Security. That's going to go out and do all of the RDC privilege grants for these clinical research associates. And similarly, I could do, I have some investigators I created per this load. So I could select the security scheme of investigator, click Select Users, and here I can go and query up all of the users that I created. So just for fun, let's select a couple of these. And again, we can grant them access to specific sites. We add, and then click Grant Security. And that's it. So one of the users I granted was the user that I had created for myself. And once you have assigned all the security privileges, then it becomes easy to log into on-site or Oracle Clinical, whatever your systems may be, with the new account. And as you can see, I added a button here for Manage My Account. This actually links to the AM tool. So that can be configured on how it's presented and what it says. But that's also helpful in the case that the user needs to retrieve their username or reset their password and they're trying to get into on-site. So here I should be able to log in, and I can indeed. So here I am. There's also this change password link that is customized to go to the AM tool as well. So there's an integration between the two systems. So that's it. Well, let's go back to the presentation here. Okay, so now let's say the next thing that happens is that one of the sites closes down, and we have these users that have email addresses with bigcompany.com, and their contract has expired. So we want to disable all access to our systems for those users. So now what we would do is go back into the AM tool. Let's close some of these windows here. Okay. And to start, I'm going to remove the RDC privileges for the A00 site. I would come back into my privilege assignment screen. I would select my environment and study, and now instead of grant, I'm going to say revoke. And I only want to revoke the site privileges for A00. So I will select users, and what I want to have happen is to show me all the users that have access to this A00 site. So there they are. I select all of them, and I say I want to revoke security for this particular site. I add them to my list, and then I click Revoke. And that's it. So now they no longer have access to the RDC A00 site through RDC. And now in addition, I want to disable the accounts for the bigcompany.com. And I can do that through this account maintenance lock unlock accounts. So I would just select lock unlock accounts, and I could enter a partial email address here, find all the users associated with bigcompany.com, and say, okay, I want to lock these accounts. Now, typically when you've created accounts, these users will go in and verify their accounts. They'll get their email. So soft lock means they haven't verified their account. But once they have, it's in a no lock state. So generally it would be no lock, and you'd come in here and do a hard lock, which they cannot take off themselves. So hard lock locks the database account. It locks the OS account. Everything becomes inaccessible for these particular users. So that's how easy it is to revoke access for specific users. And the other aspect is that these accounts may be in multiple environments, multiple databases, and if that's all set up through AM, when you do a hard lock, it's affecting all of those environments. So it really does manage that aspect for you. So that's all I'd have to do to resolve the situation of a site closing and maybe a company no longer being in contract. So then going back, the next one is I'm a user. Here's that user again, and the user forgot their password. So what do we need to do as the user? I want to just go reset my password. I don't want to have to call someone. I don't want to have to go through a big process of opening up a ticket and waiting for a response. I just want to reset my password. So here's how that would happen. Okay, we go to the user tool. Let me make this bigger here. And in the user tool, we have the options of reset your password, retrieve a username, or reset security questions. So in this case, we're just going to go to reset password, and we have to know the username and then the email address associated with the account. And we click reset password, and then it will pick one of the security questions to ask. Now if you entered the wrong value here, it will give an error. And you have 3 chances to get it correct. If you enter the correct value, then it will actually go and reset the password, and then it will send an email to the user. And here it is, saying that nope, that's the verification. Here it is. Here it is saying that your password has been reset. Now go and change your password to your official credentials. And so again, I would just click this link. It will jump into the verification screen. And in this case, we're not asking for the security questions to be reset. They've already been set. So it's simply asking for the password. And click Verify Account. And then we're done. So that's the process of resetting the password. Okay, so a couple other things I want to show you is that if you wanted to just work with a specific user account, you can do that. So for example, if I wanted to maybe update the privileges for the OC study list for my user account that I had created, M. Engler, I would just query for my user account, select it. It's hard to see. I'm trying to get the size right here. Okay. So in this case, you can see, we have our first name, last name, the email address, and then we have our environment. So I have actually access to 2 different databases, and it's all being shown through one screen. And here, if I wanted to maybe add RDC study access, I could do that specifically through here. That's our site we got rid of, but let's see. I'll go to this site. So you can modify that. You can also modify the password policy, which has it can be customized to do things like setting the reuse limit and complexity rules and things like that. And then the database roles can be adjusted through here as well. And you can apply the changes, and it goes off and applies those changes in all the environments that are specified. Another feature of the AM tool is maybe you have like a you have a production and then you have a test environment, but you just want the test environment to mimic what you have in production, you can actually link the privileges to a primary environment. So when I add a new environment, I can select that I want to link it to my master environment. And in that case, whatever I select for my master environment will get applied to my secondary environment. So you can configure this for as many databases as you want within a single AM install, or you can set it up that you only have access to one database, that you put it in prod and it's for prod. You put it in development, it's for development. So it's totally up to the client and how they want to configure the tool. Another aspect is that everything that's being done is being logged through the tool. So for example, if I go to these account logs and I look, everything that we have just done here in this demonstration has been logged for the various users. And so I could say, oh, I want to know what happened to this C. Jeffers user. I type that in and it says, okay, here's the things. It was created and it was granted this security. I can say, well, what happened to the M. Engler user? And in this case, you can see where I reset my own password and I verified the account, that kind of thing. So there's a log of what's happened. In addition, there's an email notification log as well. So let's say you're having problems getting emails to send properly, or there's some sort of error with the email address, and that would get put into this log. And then all of these logs you can download them into Excel for further research if you like. So there you have it. Okay, so that's basically the tool. Let's go back to the presentation. So what's next? For AM, we have it, creating the accounts and doing the loading of multiple accounts at once, and that's a big deal. But I think that in addition, it would be really helpful to integrate it with an account request functionality where the whole process of requesting an account and approving an account and having that feed into the tool that actually creates the account would be really helpful. So the next enhancement that's being discussed right now is to add an account request functionality where it would accept the request online, it would route them to the appropriate managers for approval, and then it would integrate it with the AM tool. And then just to mention, there's a couple of other, it looks like we have a lot of time for questions here. So there's other exciting products to be aware of. One of them is Excel Copy, where we have a product that can migrate studies and study objects or global library objects between Oracle clinical database instances, where you can just select which studies you want to move. We also have Simple Forms, which is an electronic data capture system. So just to be aware that those two products exist. And otherwise, Eugene, do you have some questions for me?
Yes, we have many questions. I'm not sure
Great.
we'll get through all of them. But so before I get to them, if you have additional questions, feel free to type them in the chat feature, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. I will state the questions as they were asked. I apologize if I am incorrectly restating something or misinterpreted something. So the first question is, can different roles and profiles be created for the AM administrator so that, for example, one admin creates accounts and another admin can only assign studies?
Not right now. And that was actually one of the things that I was putting on that slide for what's next in 2013, is I think it's not a very complicated thing to add, and it's been asked for before. So at the moment it doesn't diversify between the functionality and roles. But I can see that there's a need to do that, and it's something that probably needs to be added to the tool in the upcoming year.
Great. So the next question is, how do you avoid manual error while creating an Excel sheet?
Well, the system validates the Excel spreadsheet. In addition, there's help on each of the screens that explain what should be put in each of the fields. So if there is an error, then if there's like a technical error, the system will catch it and will give the error. If there's an error that the username was supposed to be something else, that kind of thing can't be checked for. So anything that's a technical error, the system will catch and will flag.
Great. Does AM work for multiple database instances, meaning account creation across multiple databases?
It does. It does. So that's this whole business about having the ability to select. I'm trying to make it so you can see the screen here. Select multiple environments. So this one right now is configured for 2 different databases. We have our master database, and then I can add I have the slave database. But you could have as many as you want here. And the concept of an account in AM is it's one account for one person, and then it creates all the components, all of the environment access, all of the everything for that particular account. So yes, indeed, it does go across instances.
Is AM compatible with Inform by chance?
I don't think so, but I don't know specifically. That would be a question to follow up with after this, because I'm not an Inform expert. I don't know if it's just a database role that needs to be granted or what the particular aspects are. So yeah, please follow up with that question after the webinar, and we'll find an answer.
Great. It seems that the privileges assignment is coming after the email has been sent out to the user. Is this the correct order of events?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It does submit the email for the account. When we're thinking about the account through AM, the piece of having the database account and setting up the passwords and all of that is considered the core of the account. And then the security is a layer that's put on top of it. So I think it's trying to get to the business of we've created an account, that user has to go and verify their account, and then the access is being granted. So indeed that is the way that it's going, but I can see the logic of being able to do it where the email is sent out afterwards, but at this time it doesn't do it that way.
Next question. Can a QC step be added between the account creation, study assignment, and the email that is sent out to the user to make sure the account is set up correctly before the user first logs in?
Not at this time.
Next question is, from where do you get the user ID, and how do you make sure there is no duplication of the account?
The system has checks built in. So if I were to try to create a user that already exists, the system would check that. It also makes sure that there's only one email address per user. So if I click Create User Account, it's going to say username is not unique. Similarly, if I have the same email address, it's going to give me an error. So there's checks built into the system to make sure that the integrity constraints are being maintained.
Is there an accessible audit log for the attempts to reset passwords and accessing usernames?
Yes, there is. Yeah, everything that is done through the AM tool is logged in this account logs. So yeah, so the user reset a password. All of these things are being logged within the activities. And then if the account gets locked, because of you can set the number, but generally it's 3 times. So if the account gets locked because of attempts to access the account or reset the password or retrieve the username that are invalid, then that's also logged, and then emails are sent out.
If access is revoked, is the user notified of their access being revoked?
Yes, they are.
Okay. When you lock an account, does it automatically affect all studies to which the user has access?
Well, locking the account is done at the database level and the OS level, so they won't be able to log into anything, SQL Plus or any of the systems, and therefore none of the studies. Now, it could be possible that an account is locked temporarily and wants to be unlocked at some point, so that study access is still maintained with the account, but they don't have access to anything. Now, if someone's leaving the company, you can remove all that access in addition to locking the account, which is another way to go about it. And that way, no matter what, they can't come back into the study. So there's a couple different ways to do it based on the need.
Next question. Are there any checks on email submitted more than once for different users? For example, researchcenter@gmail.com. Yes,
you can't. So you can't create more than one. You can't create an account with the same email address as another user has. So there's a check that way. In addition, there's another layer here which I hadn't shown, which is the layer of domains for emails. So we can set up a list of email domains we do not allow. For example, Gmail accounts is a typical one where you wouldn't want a clinical account set up with a Gmail account. And so if you select one of these excluded accounts, you're going to get an error and say, I'm sorry, you cannot use this email domain. In addition, if you are adding a user with a new email domain that's not in the system, it comes up with this option to add the domain either with administrative privileges or just to add. And so when you add an email domain with administrative privileges, that means that those user accounts can have some more important access, such as accessing the AM administration tool. You can configure certain roles to only be available for accounts with emails in the administrative domain. So you can kind of control it that way as well. But yeah, there's checks to make sure that it's one email address per user.
Great. Next question is, can you change your security questions after they've already been set once?
You can. Let me show you. So in the user tool, you have this reset my security questions. And in this case, you just need to enter your credentials. And then you click reset questions. And it comes in, and now you can adjust everything. And I click reset. So yeah, absolutely, you can reset them.
Great. If we have a spreadsheet to create the users and assign study site access, then can the AM tool pick up the spreadsheet from a specific location automatically and create accounts and assign study site access? I can repeat that if you'd like.
I'm thinking about it. Right now it's not set up to slurp a file. However, if you wanted to, you could have it you could set up a process on the back end. It's certainly possible, based on the way the system is developed, to have it automatically check a certain directory and then submit that to create accounts every time that there's a new file in there. So that could be done. But as far as granting the access, right now that's not done. That's not done through the back. That's done through the interface. So the access, especially the RDC study site security is done through the database, but the OC study access can be done through the spreadsheet. So partially, yes. And if there's more questions about, that's a complicated one, and I think it would be helpful to go through the various scenario. So in that case, feel free to contact us after this, and we can talk about the specifics.
Great. Can AM assign RDC privileges for test mode?
Can it assign it for test mode? Right now it's only doing production, I believe.
I saw the IP address listed. Is that of the user who has accessed the study?
Oh, right. So you're talking about the activity logs here. It captures, for each of these account logs, it's capturing the IP address of the user who did the operation. So it's trying to give traceability and also capturing the browser. Does that answer the question? Can you repeat the question again, Eugene? I'm not sure I answered it.
I saw the IP address listed. Is that of the user who has accessed the study?
Okay. That's of the user who has accessed AM. It's not keeping track of the, the logins to Oracle Clinical or RDC Onsite. That's still, it's all just the native systems. So we don't infiltrate that functionality at all because it's, we'd have to put, anyway, you can't. So this is about the user that accessed the AM tool and did these AM operations here. So.
Okay. Next question, I think you might have to talk about all the enhancements, but the question was how far off is the enhancement? I'm not sure which one they were referencing, but you may want to talk about all of them.
The one about the count request. We don't have it scheduled at this point. It's something that's in discussion, and there's a lot of interest about having that kind of functionality. So I don't know. It's something to follow up with Vicki Green about after this call. That's the best thing to do.
Great. Does this tool assign all the default database roles to the user being created?
Yes. Well, based on when you select the different applications. So, here if you select OC Access, it's going to grant the default roles are ArcSy and OC Access, and same with so it assigns the ones associated with the application, and then if you select any of this application access, it does ArcSy, ArcScreenRead, all those things. So yes.
You mentioned OC accounts. Where are the types of accounts configured? For example, roles assigned for the data management user.
Okay, so that's done here in the if you're loading it through the spreadsheet, it can be done in the column for the spreadsheet. So it's here where you're setting up the application roles, ArcSy, INV, or Super, or whatever it is. You can put multiple roles here. But if you're doing it through the Create User account, then for each environment you have database roles, and these are configurable at the install time of what appears in this list, and you can select as many as you want. That's appropriate for your user account.
Next question is, how difficult is it to configure AM and have it tie in with OC?
Well, we have a process to do it. It's done through, so there's certain things that have to be configured. There's your database instances. There's the servers that you're using that need to have components created for the account. So your database server, maybe a SAS server, and that's all done through metadata that's configured. So it's all set up to manage multiple environments. So there's a process involved, and it's part of the installation. And so I don't think if the question is how much does it take to install, I would say half a day is what it takes to install with the documentation. So.
What about the ability to grant privilege updates? Is that a future addition?
To grant privilege updates. I'm not sure I totally understand, but I think what they mean is to add additional grants to a user account. If not, please correct or clarify the question. But I think in that case, what I do is I go to Edit Account, and I can just select more roles, and then I apply the changes. So it's very simple to
I think they were referencing when a study is locked.
Okay. Say it again. I'm sorry.
What about the ability to grant privilege updates? Is that a future addition?
To grant privilege updates.
And then I believe that individual responded when a study is locked.
I think they're talking about the data entry configuration. Yeah, that's not done through AM. We're talking about the configuration through Oracle Clinical, about if they have privileged update or whatever, that's still set up through Oracle Clinical.
Okay. Is a notification sent if a user is unable to answer the security question after 3 tries?
Yes. Well, yes. What happens is the account gets locked, an email is sent to the user indicating why, and also to the administrator notifying them it happened. Because at that point, once you get a hard lock, only the administrator can remove it.
Okay. Do you provide validation documentation?
Absolutely, yes, I do. We have it fully documented, so we're talking, everything. We have, user requirements, functional requirements. There's like 170 some test cases, system designs. We have everything. We have user guides. So absolutely, it's fully documented and validated.
Next question is, we currently have an account review process that happens every quarter where we are currently utilizing a SQL query. Could this tool produce a report of that sort and be exported to an Excel file?
Got it. Well, I think what you would do is you would query this, and then you could just copy this into Excel and then go from there. So there's not a link here to download it, but it's because of the way it's eliminated here, you could simply just do a copy and paste, and you could bring up whatever you'd like to look at. And the nice thing about this is that it also shows all the different accesses regarding RDC study, OC study, access across all the different databases. It's all in one place.
How do you manage the specific rights of each role? For example, the CRA cannot enter data in RDC, but can manage queries. So that's done through the RDC privilege assignment. Now these security schemes I've shown, this is all configurable. So in this case, we have it configured that the clinical research associate can update discrepancies and verify in the site. If you don't want that, then you can configure it to not have that access. So this is all just managed at install time. And in this case, that controls what the clinical research associate could do, and likewise it could control any of the other accounts the way that you'd want that to be configured. Next question is, can we create or amend database roles and configure different permissions, such as customize the roles per requirement? Yes. Yeah, the database roles it's part of the install process to configure what they are and what they're named. And if you have add-on tools or other things that require a database role, you can include that as well. So absolutely, yes. Great. We had several questions about pricing, customers, et cetera. So I would rather not talk about that, of course, on a public webinar, but I would invite those interested to contact us directly, and we could address those questions appropriately. Okay, just got another question. Can the AM admin see the answers to the security question or emails that are attached to an account? They can't see the answers to the security question. And then the emails that are sent, you can see part of it. You can see the subject, but that's it. They're not going to show you the content. Now, we do keep track of what's sent and how it's done in the database tables, but as far as the AM admin is concerned, they can only see the subject and who it's sent to. And no, they can't. They can't. And furthermore, the passwords that
are utilized by this system for doing its operation are all encrypted. Passwords that are set by the user are not stored anywhere. All of these, when I'm looking at privileges assigned here, like in my queries, and when I'm pulling it up in the create accounts and edit accounts, that's all being done live from the system. And that recognizes that accounts can be modified many different ways. And AM is one way and hopefully the primary way that they're managed. But it doesn't mean that I can't go into OC and adjust a study access list, for example. And so if I did that, AM would pick it up. AM's not storing that stuff locally. And so that also applies. That applies to the, the password reset. So we don't know what the password is. I don't store it anywhere. There's not even encrypted. And any of the roles and all of that. So.
Great, thank you. So it looks like we've gone through all the questions that we've received. I'll give another minute to those who have other questions. Feel free to type them in the chat feature before we close the webinar. So we'll give it another minute. And as we're waiting, there were several inquiries about whether or not we're going to be sending out the presentation, and we'll be sending out a recording tomorrow. So if you do not receive it, check your junk mail folder just in case, but you should receive it. So a few more questions that we just got in. Does AM prevent you from granting access to frozen studies?
I am not sure. I have to look into that one before I'm really not sure. This access list is a query about what you can grant, and I don't recall if the limit's on there for the frozen studies or not, but I can look that up.
Great. Okay, so another 10 seconds for any additional questions. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to talk about the email domain list, but if you have another question, feel free to go ahead.
Go ahead. It's all yours.
No. I just wanted to say that the other functionality that I hadn't demonstrated, I had shown part of it how you add the different email domains with the, whether they have admin privilege or not. You can also manage those domains here through the Manage Email Domain List, and you can inactivate a domain if you no longer want new users to be curated with it. So this is all also available in terms of just managing, who gets to have administrative access and who doesn't. Well, that's it.
Great. So I think this is a good spot to end our Q&A session. If you have other questions, feel free to contact us. I would like to remind everyone that today's webinar will be available at biopharm.com within 24 hours for you to review and share with your colleagues. I also want to mention that we have several upcoming webinars, including one on March 6th that will discuss and demonstrate Excel Copy, another software application that allows for the copying, migrating, and archiving of Oracle clinical studies and global libraries. Feel free to register if it's of interest. You can access the registration form on our website. That said, we thank you for your participation and hope that the information we provided you today was helpful. Have a great rest of the day and evening.
Thank you.